Welcome back to the Autoblog podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. Joining me today on the phones is senior editor for All Things Green, John Snyder. We have an awesome show for you today. We drove the Maverick, we drove the Hummer, we drove the one of the E-Trons, and we're going to talk about the Countach. We'll also spend your money. It's a pretty good show, so no need to really, I'd say, belabor the intro. John was talking off camera. We were talking about some vodka. Just realized I'm wearing my Jameson shirt that I got at the bar probably 10 years ago when they were giving out random just Jameson samples.
Nice.
So I don't really have much more than that. Happy Wednesday. How are you, John?
I'm pretty good. It's been kind of a crazy week, but things are starting to fall back into place. Quick note is the Palisade. We bought a Palisade, and it saved my wife and daughter from grievous injury in a highway accident. So it's out of commission for the time being, but we're figuring out our car situation this week. But very pleased that it happened in that car and not something else, because both my wife and my infant daughter are A-okay. And got that part of the week in the rearview mirror, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the week.
Thus the celebratory cocktails,
Yes.
as we mentioned. So that's great news. That's all that really matters. So hey, like I said, it's Wednesday. Got a great fall week ahead of us. Leaves are really starting to turn here.
It's beautiful
on the TV. So yeah, it's a good time to be in Michigan.
Yeah.
You drove the Ford Maverick in, I want to say, Nashville.
Yes, that's
super
correct.
Psyched about that. How was that?
It was really good. I'm really impressed that they can offer such a good package at such a low price, such a low starting price. I drove the hybrid and the EcoBoost. I drove front wheel drive and all wheel drive. I drove the FX4. I drove on road, a little bit off road, nothing too heavy. And yeah, every single version I got in was great. You can tell that Ford did a lot to not cut costs, but save costs in terms of materials and things like that. But instead of just putting in plastic that looks really cheap, they put in hard plastics, but they gave it interesting grains or interesting colors and textures, and did things like have some cool shapes, and like a cantilevered door armrest to make room for water bottles. You can put tons and tons of water bottles in this thing. But yeah, you can tell that they really used a lot of brain power to make this super useful without making it super expensive. And they really succeeded at that. Ford kept saying that this is sort of geared toward a younger audience. And man, I could see this being a great vehicle for empty nesters who, maybe have been driving an F-150 to work every day. Maybe they're retired, don't need that much car, don't need that much storage, but still like the utility of a pickup, but want something a little easier to drive, a little easier on the wallet in terms of efficiency. The Maverick would be a great option for people like that. It's super smart. The bed has 12-volt pre-wired circuits for the customers who would normally tie into the tail light assembly to run like bed lights or other electronics in the rear. People just sort of DIY their trucks, and so they made this really easy for them to do that sort of stuff. They have little QR codes throughout the vehicle that give you ideas for how to spend less than $100 at Home Depot to make your own bike rack that fits perfectly in the back of the Maverick, or ideas for 3D printing cup holders or other accessories that fit in these little dovetail slots that they have throughout the rear of the truck. The rear bench seat lifts up, and there's tons of room under there, and you can put dividers and stuff in there. It's just a really, really impressive use of space and material, and it drives well too. You know, I started off in the hybrid, heading up and out of town, basically uphill the entire way, and was easily getting 39 miles per gallon, you know, on these sort of 2-lane rural highways. They're targeting 40 miles per gallon in the city, and I forget how much in the like 33 or something on the highway. I think that'll be easily achievable. The one thing that was a little weird with the hybrid is the brakes. It's, you know, hard to get brakes right in some hybrids, and this is they were sort of grabby at first, but then a little mushy as you dug deeper into the pedal. After driving it for about 10 minutes, I completely forgot about it and was used to it. And if that's a no-go for you, the EcoBoost offers more power. The brakes feel perfect. But yeah, it was a great little truck. I was really impressed with it.
For me, what sort of gives the Maverick kind of a unique selling proposition is the hybrid option.
Yeah.
I drove the Santa Cruz a couple times now, and from a design standpoint, some of the utility things on it, it's a little bit of a different thing. Those are the two natural competitors just in size and sort of overall mission. Santa Cruz is a little bit more of a crossover kind of replacement, whereas the Maverick is like Ford truck. But also, I mean, the hybrid if you just want a hybrid, a good, efficient hybrid, you should look at this because it's not a big vehicle. I mean, it's a good size, but you know what I mean? It's not like this hulking truck.
Right.
It's like a legitimate, hey, if you're looking at a hybrid, just check this thing out. So I think that was a really smart move on their part, on Ford's part, to say, hey, we're going to offer a hybrid right here. And it gets you like, what, 40 miles per gallon? I mean, it's very impressive.
Yeah, and the size of it really appeals to me. The big trucks, you know, harder to drive, harder to maneuver, harder to park, harder to get in and out of. This Maverick, you know, from the outside, it looks pretty small. When you walk up to it, you know, I was looking over the roof easily by a couple inches. And so I was like, man, is it going to be cramped inside? But inside it feels nice and open and roomy. Sat in the back seat. I'd be perfectly happy back there. Plenty of room. I wouldn't have a problem stuffing car seats back there. Although that would mean I couldn't get to the under the seat storage. But yeah, other than that, really good use of space. The bed is small. It's a 4.5-foot bed. But it's got, you know, built-in tie downs and available racks where you can screw in your own eye bolts and make your own tie down spots. And the bed is big enough to fit a full pallet of whatever. I drove a short loop in a hybrid with 1,000 pounds of mulch in it, and made me think of you. And it drove just fine. It was great. And then I also drove the FX4, which has underbody protection, has shock absorbers that are better dissipating heat, things like that. I think it's only an $800 package, which doesn't seem like a lot. So if you do have to get a little off-road into rocks and ruts, and it also has a couple more modes. It's got a rut and mud driving mode, and it's got a sand driving mode. But if you do need to go a little bit further off-road and are worried about dinging something underneath your truck, you know, $800 and you've got that decently capable package.
I am a big fan of the FX4 option, especially in the Ranger. I think that's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
gives that
that's a
truck a little
great
bit of
application of
life.
it.
So I would, without having driven it, I'm going to say right now, I would get the FX4 and the Maverick. Like $800 sounds like a good deal to me.
I think you do have to get that with the all-wheel drive, though.
Yeah,
So
I think I could live
that
with
would have
that.
to be EcoBoost.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's true. Because so there's some compromises here, which would make me maybe like that would be a tough trade-off because I would like to get that, but I would also probably lean hybrid, you know? That being said, EcoBoost is almost like a hot rod kind of engine for a vehicle this small. So,
yeah,
you know, there's some trade-offs there.
yeah, the hybrid is plenty powerful for getting around. It doesn't feel slow at all. You know, the motor doesn't drone. You know, and with the EcoBoost, yeah, it's quicker. You don't have the option to shift your own gears that I noticed, which is fine. I don't usually use that often anyways, unless I'm in a sports car, or I suppose towing. There might be some mode or something that I missed for, you know, in the towing mode or something where you can find a button, or I don't know, but there was no you know, gear selector. It was just a rotary dial, you know, and there was no paddles. But yeah, if I were getting it, I would get the base hybrid. I would add the driver assistance stuff maybe, and I would spring for a set of snow tires for the winter and call it good. I think that'd be, you know,
Yeah.
at least here in Michigan where it's flat, plenty snowworthy.
What looking at the pictures, the interior to me looks like a pretty big step up from some of the other more basic Fords out there. Like this interior looks better to me than the Ranger interior, which to be fair, that's an older, essentially Australian truck. But to me, I mean, doesn't look like much of a comparison. The Maverick interior looks better than the Ranger, and it looks just in general quite good. So I'm curious for your take on that.
Definitely didn't feel, you know, it's some of the other Fords, like, you know, the Escape or whatever that shares the same platform. Those interiors can feel a little dreary and dreadful. Just the plastic and the fitment. This is all, I don't know. It's really nice shapes. So if there is hard plastic, it's got either a nice texture, a nice color, or, you know, sometimes it'll be like a sort of curved space. So it looks interesting and it looks utilitarian without looking like a cheap swath of uncomfortable hard plastic. And there are little touches like the exposed fasteners, the exposed, you know, nuts in the door armrests and along the dash. I think if you look really closely at them, they even say Ford on the head of the nut, and it's just kind of a neat little touch, and it makes it feel special. But you know, that didn't cost a ton for them to do that. I mean, that's not an upgrade. It's just a different way of doing the interior, and it works in making it feel less dreary and drab.
It is, I would say the Maverick is one of the vehicles, just because of all of the things that we've discussed here, why I'm super excited to drive it. I think I'm going to get in one in the next couple of weeks, actually. It's now a semi-finalist for North American Truck of the Year. I'm on the jury this year, which I'm pretty psyched about.
Yeah,
and there's just so many good trucks on it. Like I'm looking at the list, just because I'm trying to remember like what made the cut, what didn't. You know, you've got the Frontier, you've got the Rivian R1T, you've got the Santa Cruz, Hummer EV, and then the Tundra. Like,
wow.
But of course the Maverick. Like literally any one of these trucks in a year might be on there. But
who would have thought 2021 would be such a good year for trucks?
The year of the truck, right?
It's great. You know, I used to like trucks, and then I got sort of sick of them for a while, and now I'm getting excited about trucks again. There's some really nice offerings out there, and
Have you driven
with the electric ones coming out, it's even better.
that's a good segue to probably the Hummer truck
Yeah.
that I drove. So let's just shift gears over to that. I drove the Hummer EV. This is the Edition 1. I drove it literally a week ago out at the Milford Proving Grounds. That's General Motors, like sort of hiding in plain sight, secret test track, testing grounds that they've had for about 60 years. I always like going out there. There's just something about like seeing the prototypes of all the different cars and camo. When I got off the expressway at the Milford exit, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's been a few years since I've been here. It's a straight shot. Like the road like ends, so you can't really miss it. But the vehicle in front of me was a Hummer. So I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to the right place here. Just going to follow this guy. It wasn't even camoed. It was just like a white Hummer, which, side note, I have no idea why companies put as much camo on some of these things as they do. Like, literally, my first thought was, is that a Ridgeline? Because I was far back. And just like the silhouette, I'm sure like GMC people would cringe that I was thinking it was a Ridgeline.
Well,
but they have somewhat of a...
Yeah, it's got those sail panels on the back.
Like, and it didn't, like, my brain didn't go to the place that, oh, wait, there's a Hummer on the public roads. Okay. Hey, there it is. And it's got GMC on it. So anyways, I did all of the things you would expect. I crab walked, which the best way I would compare that to is like pontoon boating. You kind of turn the wheel and the vehicle goes diagonal, and it's like you're putting all this steering input and the vehicle isn't really turning and the nose is staying straight. So it's almost like pontooning upstream. I don't know. It's cool. It's fun. I put it sort of in the bucket is like with the Mercedes. Remember the GLS with the kind of bouncing thing?
Yeah.
Kind of cool. I don't really know like how you would use this. Like, I'm sure there's some use cases off-road or even parking where it could work.
Yeah.
But you've really got to like learn how to use it. So you're skilled and then you can use it to its full effect. It's sort of like, I don't know. It doesn't, a little bit unnecessary, but
it doesn't seem like it would come naturally, to move like that in a vehicle. But if you sort of mastered it, you could probably do some pretty cool stuff.
What I wrote in my story, my like prototype drive, it's almost like a preview of the vehicle, was it's a cool party trick, and if you're going to pay $112,500 and some dollars, I think you should be able to drive your Hummer diagonally. I mean, for that kind of money, why not? So check out the story, by the way. Check out John's story, of course. Both these pieces are up. Mine has, I was going to say body cam, dash cam video of, it's not that intrusive. It's dash cam video of me and Al Oppenheiser driving the Hummer. He's the chief engineer for electric vehicles and for the Hummer.
Yeah.
You probably know him as the chief engineer, the legend of the Camaro.
Yeah.
So it was cool to kind of hang out with him. He did the Watts to Freedom, which is WTF. That is intentional. He's like,
That's
literally,
great.
I'm like, so the abbreviation is this. He's like, yeah, we know. We thought it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, more power to you, GMC. And I'd say 3 seconds for a vehicle that's like 9,000 pounds is pretty tremendous.
Yeah.
And it feels like 3 seconds. Like, I laid on the accelerator
Right.
on kind of like a dirt area. And I got up, literally, if you watch the video, I think I hit 45. And then I lift because the thing starts to go sideways. And I'm not crab walking. So I'm like, all right, I've got the PR person in the back seat. Al, I'm sure, is cool. 45 is nothing to him.
Yeah.
But I'm like, nope, I got to get this thing under control. We're not going to fishtail here in this prototype. But then when he did it on, like, they have this like kind of racetrack, which been on it a few times. This isn't the Lutz Ring, the legendary one where they test out more like sports sedans and, Camaros, Cadillacs, things like that. This is more like a straightaway. I've actually done like semi-autonomous driving on it at different points.
Okay.
So it's like a different one than the Lutz Ring, if you will, as they call it, which, for those of you wondering what I'm talking about, there's a very twisty road course designed at the proving grounds where General Motors tests. It's like, very smartly handling cars, and it's designed like a European road course, and that's called the Lutz Ring after former Vice Chairman Bob Lutz.
Maximum Bob,
former fighter pilot in Korea. He's still doing stuff every now and then.
I think he's still doing stuff with Henrik Fisker, the VLF.
Good for him and good for them. That was that random like Frankenstein car of like an Ecotec, whatever they had in it. Then they had like a V8 or something in it. So it was the beautiful Karma with a couple of different powertrains. Boy, that car's had like 9 lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Oppenheiser put down a time on the not Lutz Ring that was about 3 seconds. I was like, yeah, no, that's quick. This is pretty fast.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, we drove pre-production ones. Mine had like over 7,000 miles on it. I want to say like 7,700 miles on it. So it's doing its sea trials. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Zach and I think it was Byron or Joel, when we were at Motorbella, we were talking about it, and they've been seeing, the prototypes going up and down Woodward and whatnot. So they've been out there.
I'm kind of curious. What do you have a preference, truck or SUV? If you were gonna like just aesthetically, which one do you think, or which would you have a better use case if you were in the market for a 6-figure vehicle?
Oh man, the truck is just so huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so long. I don't know. They both look neat, and but they're both like way more than I need by a lot.
Same.
And one thing that concerns me about the Hummers is their weight. If there's a case to be made for an EV road use tax, in lieu of a gas tax, these cars are the ones to make that case, because they're gonna, 9,000 pounds, and if you're ripping away from stoplights at with launch control or whatever, 9,000 pounds, those big tires, you're gonna do some damage to those roads. Obviously, not as much as semis or whatever, but the people who want to implement an EV road tax are going to point directly at the Hummers and be like, this is why it needs to happen. But I do really like that that GM's coming in hot with something. They're making a statement, and the statement is EVs are cool. Look at what they can do. And yeah, if I had to pick, I would probably pick the SUV, specifically because dogs. I feel more comfortable putting my dog in the back of an enclosed vehicle than either trying to cram it in the admittedly very spacious cabin of the truck, then have to figure out something for the bed, and leave it exposed to the elements. But I mean, they both look cool. I also really like the look of the spare tire on the back of the SUV as well. I think that's really a neat statement too.
I make a lot of decisions in my life based on what will benefit my dog.
Right.
So I will freely admit that. I think I would probably, just in this rare case, go with the truck based purely on looks. And the interior is quite expansive. Like my 65-pound golden retriever would have some room in the back seat. I think she'd be okay.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty wide. Like it's as wide as like a Raptor is some of the comparisons I've read. So it's a very like long, but also kind of square. Like it's a wide footprint. Like until you're in it, you can't like really like fathom just how big it is. And it just, there's something about like that bed trailing behind you. You can pull off the roof panels. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of cool. I would get a tonneau cover if I were going to do this, though. I think it might be an option, just because I think I'd get one of those regardless if I had a truck, just because that's how I would use it. I really from a truck perspective, from a use case, it's why I like the Wrangler over the Gladiator. I think the Gladiator looks cool, but I would always get the Wrangler or the 4Runner because just for like family life, it's your little rolling fortress. That's perfect, you know, and that's how I would roll. So this is like the one example where I'd probably take aesthetics over practicality.
Yeah.
But 1,200 horsepower, or excuse me, 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. This is one of the first times I think they've actually confirmed that it's not like, remember they were throwing that ridiculous 11,000 or whatever it was,
which is like wheel torque, which is a whole equation that doesn't really mean anything to consumers.
Like, come on, like, what are you, Tesla? Don't do that. But yeah, some numbers there. The interior looked pretty good too. It's a little minimalistic, but I would say it's in the same vein as almost like the Defender, where it's expensive, but it's not like rich and decadent. It's like kind of like it looks cool. Everything felt and looked nice, but it's simplistic. Which is fine. You know, it works at a variety of, you know, applications and price points, you know, like Volvo doesn't have decadent interiors, but they look really good. I was in the Grand Wagoneer a couple weeks ago. I just wrote a column on that. So check that out too. That interior was pretty decadent. You know, the one I drove started at 104,000. I mean, multi-screens, you know, for the second row. The leather, you could like chew it up. I've had steaks that weren't that good, that looked as good as this leather. You know, that's more of a decadent interior. Even from a Jeep, you know, and Jeep certainly is rough and tough too. So yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of ways to approach it, but long story short, the interior looked pretty good, even in a prototype. I think that's a good sign for what they're going to do here. I remember I drove the Camaro prototype back in 2008 out at Milford, and some of the parts of it were not great. Let's put it that way. And you expected that. You're like, okay, they're bringing this car back. Interiors in 2008 were like, that might as well have been 1998, right? So, you know, some of the, you know, it was what you would expect a 2008 Camaro prototype to look like. And then later on, we would actually see that Camaro interiors weren't so great. You know, it kind of portended what was to come. But I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying the Hummer interior is pretty solid, I think. I think the shapes, the materials, it's going to be okay. Yeah, crab walked, drove fast, looks good, went off-roading. The trail cams are pretty great too. They have this like ultra vision system where when you're coming down like a rock pile, it's a lot like in the Bronco and some of the Jeep lineup. You know, it can really help you where you're going. I was pretty proud that I didn't really scrape. I was like, hey, okay. And this thing's like twice as big as a Bronco. Whereas the first thing I did when I drove the Bronco a couple months ago is I literally crashed up this rock and I'm like, oh God. Then when I got out, it's like the skid plates on that thing are like good enough. Like there's enough body armor on that thing that like, I didn't even need to be nervous, you know, but it's just like, oh, you're that guy who like immediately scrapes up the hill. But with this thing, I did a pretty good job, if I do say so myself, with the cameras. So that was cool. I don't know. Looks cool. For me, though, just to kind of bring this all together, this is like a G-Class. It's like expensive. It's over the top. It's more than you need. Things like there's some areas you could tell they focused on, we're going to make this a luxury item. We're not going to care about the weight. We want it to go 3 seconds to 60. So that means we're going to have enough batteries in there and they're going to be powerful enough to make it happen. Oh, it weighs 9,000 pounds. Oh, well, you know? So there's some of that. So in that sense, it's a little decadent, but I mean, they're not going to sell a gazillion of these, but I actually think just from like continuing the EV conversation, I think this is a good thing. I really do. I think
do too. Yeah.
It's like, I think it's an aggressive play. And if you don't want that, well, okay, they're going to figure out how to have the Chevy Bolts stop catching on fire. Buy that small car if that's what you want. Or buy the Cadillac Lyriq, which is another EV I'm super excited about.
Yeah, and there's going to be a Buick, you know, this sort of size of a Bolt. There's going to be a Buick and a Chevy, sort of the size of the Lyriq, all electric. they've got a lot of stuff coming. We got to see it all at the EV day right before the pandemic, and yeah, they're all production intent vehicles that are in the works, and yeah, they're coming. There's going to be a lot of options.
GM just announced this week some plans for like investing in EVs and batteries. It's part of their like investor day here in Detroit. So obviously we're following that news closely. But let's shift maybe single planetary gears over to the Audi RS E-Tron.
I believe it has 2 gears.
It has 2 gears.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot you had this thing, this is pretty cool. It's got a solid range. What's the range? Like 300 something? Yeah.
And when it showed, I've been driving it so aggressively that,
so your range is like 60 miles or something.
No, I was still able to, I didn't have to take it to a DC charger at all. I charged it at home on the 120 volt, mobile charger, and I had it at a level 2 charger for maybe 2.5 hours. That's really all the charging I did with it. I was still able to go to Lansing and back and all over town, and I had to do a lot of extra driving this week because down a car in the household. So this thing has been serving as my way to get around and get around quickly, and it's also served as the thing that we put a stroller and a bag full of soccer balls into the trunk for Wally's soccer practice, because we took over coaching because the coach's kid was sick and all this stuff. So we had to put a lot of 2 car seats. But oh man, it's such a great vehicle. I mean, this is the RS, and according to Audi's nomenclature, it's the Audi RS E-Tron GT. And it is wicked fast. It is one of the faster vehicles I've driven. And I've driven the Demon, but this thing is just, you blink and you're going 60 miles per hour and you're doing it quietly. It is very smooth, very fun. Lots of lateral grip. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's basically, it's the same platform as the Porsche Taycan. So you can argue whether you like the looks of the Taycan or the Audi better. I personally think the Audi looks better, just based on personal preference. And the interior is a little more normal and appointed than the Taycan. A little less digitized too. But yeah, I went and saw my sister up in Lansing, and I was having to give everyone rides around just to show them how quick and how cool this car was. Yeah, people were really into it, and it wasn't just people I knew. I was getting looks from people on the street today. Dropping Wally off at school, I'm waiting in line for the drop off, and a Polestar 2 comes into the parking lot, and we saw each other. We both gave each other thumbs up, and it was another dad from Wally school, and got talking. He's like, I read Autoblog every day, which,
nice.
If you're listening, Jacob, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, please keep reading. Tweet, share, download the podcast.
Yeah,
said let's just spend my monies. And
then I took it to pick up dinner the other night, and the owner of Bandito's, the restaurant down the road, who's a car guy, whenever I place my order, like the first thing he asks is, "What are you driving?" And I showed up, and he was just, jaw was on the floor, It's a really nice looking car, especially in that sort of flat gray with that carbon fiber roof and little, red styling elements here and there. It's a very aggressive looking vehicle, and it lives up in every way to its looks and its performance. It's a blast. I was sad to see it go.
It is. I'm a little torn. I kind of think I'd come down on Taycan. Whenever I see one of those in real life, I really am taken by just how beautiful the car is. I think it's a little bit, maybe the RS or the E-Tron to me is a little bit much, whereas the Taycan's slightly understated, if you could say that about an electric Porsche sedan that's usually in the six figures. So, but it's close. Just, looking at some of these pictures here, the E-Tron has very much a Tron, like Transformers kind of vibe, but it's cool too. Like, I mean, it is really a cool looking car. So, I could go either way.
Yeah, I should probably give some figures while we're, before we, I think 637 horsepower. 0 to 60, I think, is right around 3 seconds flat. Maybe, let's see. Yeah, 3.1 according to Audi. And man, yeah, I wrote a column a few weeks back about how cars are too many cars are too fast, and then after I did that, I got in the E53 AMG and was like, this is one of the things where it's okay, and it's not the full blown, it's not the 63 or anything. And then I got on this, and it's like, it's just incredibly quick, and it almost feels like cheating. It feels like, there's no effort to going fast, which some people love. Some people just want to go they want that feeling of straight line acceleration. They want to feel the forward G forces, and that's fine. This offers that completely. But I would probably, I drove the base Taycan, the rear wheel drive one, over the winter, and I really liked that in terms of a balance of performance and handling. I mean, this thing handled great, don't get me wrong, but it just that I feel like some of it's wasted on me when I have to drive on public roads and adhere at least to some semblance of a speed limit. But it is cool to, I mean, it's flashy, it's fun to show off to people. Look how fast this goes, and it really does blow minds. But again, like the Hummer, probably unnecessary, but glad it exists. It's good for the movement, good for the cause. And yeah, I'll always remember driving it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's that's kind of cool. I could have been the guy pulling up at drop off today in the Polestar 2, but because I have one of those in my driveway, but I had like half a cup of coffee and I could not get the car seat in the back row. The seat belts are a little weird, so there's that. But then I realized, like, oh, I'm putting it in the wrong slot of the car seat. It was driving me crazy because I'm also testing a Honda Civic, which is also on the Knack Toy short list this time. So I'm kind of juggling cars in my personal Scuderia here, and I'm like, I give up. I'm just going to put it in the Civic. I'm too tired. This isn't making sense. And then I'm like, oh, geez, I just threaded the car seat wrong using the rear seat belt. So
when I did
Polestar 2 is interesting.
It's a great car. I told the other gentleman in the parking lot, I told him that was the best car I drove last year. I think we even had a post where we each listed our favorite cars from the year,
Yeah.
and that was mine. I remember the first drive was, they were doing them regionally, and the first one was, right down the street in Ypsi.
Yeah.
And so I drove it home. Yeah, they just sort of said, just be back by a certain time. So I actually drove it home, got out the car seat, put it in there. This is a front-facing high back booster seat. And that worked just fine. I didn't try putting in a convertible or infant car seat or any sort of rear-facing thing. But yeah, the convertible, the high back booster, Wally would have had, I had him just sit in it. I didn't take him for a drive because I was short on time, but it looked like he would have been perfectly comfortable back there. I feel like sitting in front of a rear-facing car seat in that car, as with most cars, would be difficult. But I don't know. Yeah, I love the Polestar too. That's a car I would definitely consider owning, and I'm looking forward to trying the single motor version. Again, I don't need to go 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds even. just give me a good electric car that's efficient and handles well, and just has that cooperates with some spirited driving.
I'm excited to drive this. Today or tomorrow, I'm just going to take it out in the middle of the day, get a feel for it. We're actually testing parts of this for our technology of the year.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it as that because we're starting to do that. We'll be voting on that this fall. So it's award season here in the car business.
Yes, it is.
So we should probably talk about something from the deep past. That is the 1971 Lamborghini Countach. This is a prototype. We thought it was lost to history. Check out the story. It was on our site last week by Jonathan Ramsey. He does a nice job of breaking it down. All of the history, what happened, where history kind of got murky. And, the upshot, why we're talking about this, is Lambo decided, hey, a very important collector who they did not name wanted them to build this. So obviously he or she paid plenty of money or somehow had something on them. And they did it. And it put all these man hours into getting it done. They used some archival documents, some original spare parts still left around. They did some modern techniques to try to get the lines right. I believe Pirelli just custom built some new tires based on the old ones. It's awesome if you look at it. If you're a fan of the Countach, maybe this is the car on your wall as a kid.
It was.
Yeah,
it absolutely was.
I love this car.
Yeah.
I the original one too. This is the one that was at the Geneva Motor Show back in '71. It's awesome. So I'm psyched they redid it. And to kind of bring it back together, they took the prototype and crash tested it back in '74. And then the trail kind of runs cold. So this is sort of it's back from the dead, if you will. I'm very curious what happened to that crash tested prototype. Back in the 60s and 70s, they did stuff like this because it's well, hey, we need to crash test this. We only have one. Run that thing down, especially for a company the size of Lamborghini.
It's got to be heartbreaking.
But you even hear about this with some of the Ford GTs and things from that era. A famous race car would crash, then they'd bolt it back together and use it for just a track car or something, and then it'd turn up in somebody's barn, and it's well, actually, according to the chassis number, this is the thing. Something Ken Miles did, or it's just. It's amazing how these things come back. So I'm very curious what actually happened to that. Maybe they just totally scrapped it. Who knows? I don't know. I think this is a cool footnote to history. I love stuff like this.
Yeah, I absolutely had a poster of the Countach on my wall. I bought it at book fair at school.
Nice.
Scholastic Book Fair. Those were the days.
Scholastic Book Fair.
I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts on the new Countach, the LPI 804?
I like that.
Because
go ahead.
I saw lots of different opinions on it, and some people were just hated it. I actually thought it looked really cool.
I would agree with you. I think is somebody, I think generally you either like the Countach or you don't. Maybe you're like a, a Diablo fan or something. And I always fall into the Countach camp just because it's that wedge-shaped design.
Yeah.
It really strikes a lot of notes for me. I was able to drive one a few years back down in Miami. That was wild. So I like it. I like that they essentially brought the name back. And it's not going to be a huge production run. It's essentially like a restyled Cyan, if that's how I'm saying that right.
I think it's Xi'an.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
not 100% sure with a lot of those Italian nameplates.
I should probably know that, but I don't. But I'm good with it. I think, hey, they're bringing it back. I could see where, maybe someday they would bring it back as like one of Lamborghini always has a very small portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it back, put it in the lineup, make it a continuously part of the lineup rather than like, hey, the Countach is back, but it's really not exactly. Like, it's almost like that 8C that Alfa Romeo did and sold in small numbers in the United States. It was like, yeah, it's here, but are you ever going to get one? No. I mean, are you ever going to really get an Aventador? Probably not, but so it's, I think it's cool. I'm glad they're doing it. It's also a little weird though, that they're like, if you're not going to pull, like if you're going to use that name, it seems like you really, really want to step into it. You know, like don't make it this limited run thing that's based on this other car. And it's essentially like a restyled thing,
Yeah.
So that's where I do feel a little dissonance, like redo it, bring it back, sell it for like 5 years, the last one they sold for like 15 years, well into the late 80s. So, and it was like the same car too.
Yeah.
So, that's where I get a little bit of heartburn, because it's almost kind of like, hey, like we're going to bring back the Chevelle, but it's based on like an Equinox chassis. And we're only going to sell it for a year. And I don't know. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but you see where I'm going.
Yeah.
Like maybe really step into it.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see more. Give me more Countach.
It does look cool though. I mean, like I'll give them credit. Like they really, I mean, they made it look right. I think they could have gone a little more retro with this modern one, if you will, but I mean, it all seems to be there, Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think the original 71 prototype is still in existence anywhere? Like the scrapped parts of it, the crumpled up piece of it. Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah,
like,
there's probably something in some, designer studio or, on the back of some shop or something. Who knows?
It's a little bit like that. What was that red Mustang that was lost to history or something?
Oh, right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. It's the dream lives up to today. Interesting. They had almost 2,000 Countaches were produced. I'm reading just straight from the Lambo website now at this point, from 74 to 1990. So that's actually a little less than I thought. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a car that is as much myth as reality,
It was the Countach and the Ferrari Testarossa was the other poster I had.
Testarossa was a good one. Yeah. Subsequently scrapped is what the official Lambo party line is. So
yeah, there's there's like a fender or something to hang on someone's wall or something.
Should we spend some money?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. This is from Chaz, north of Boston. Go Bruins. You guys beat the Yankees last night with the Red Sox. So I don't know. Right now, your baseball and hockey teams are probably better than the Red Wings and the Tigers right now. But hey, Tigers had a good end of the year. We're coming for you next year, maybe. Currently driving an 02 E320 wagon with 190K on the clock. Debating how to keep up with maintenance or go electric. 40 miles north of Boston. Commute into the city twice a week, as well as to New Hampshire in the summers. I've been to New Hampshire in the winter, actually. It's probably a little bit nicer in the summer. Let me put it that way. They have a medium-sized dog as well. I have a dog that I would say is medium-sized, but she's trending towards probably a little bit larger now. As she's full grown, and she had a big piece of pizza the other night, which was very annoying to me because I was going to eat that piece of pizza. I digress. Looking at the Model Y over the Mustang Mach-E and the ID4 with the long-range all-wheel drive options, not yet on the market. Hold out for another year or just lease. Anything else coming to mind? It's a single-car house. Chaz in Boston. What do you think there, John?
Well, as much as the E320 wagon is really sweet, 190,000 miles is a really good run for that. And you've probably, it's probably given you everything it's got to give for the most part. I mean, sometimes they go for a long time, but you're asking the green editor. I'm all for going with an EV. Let's see, 40 miles north of Boston, commuting twice a week, and New Hampshire in the summers. I'm hesitant to recommend the Model Y myself, as it's not one that I would purchase myself. I would absolutely purchase a Mach-E or an ID4. And the all-wheel drive ID4 is coming out fairly soon.
You're going to have one in your driveway in like 2 weeks, I believe, right?
Yeah,
as part of the press fleet.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And I'm looking at the order site for it. The all-wheel drive Pro is expected in February of 22, and the Pro S is starting this month. So you don't really have to wait if you're okay with spending a little bit more. But all-wheel drive, about 250 miles of range, should be good for what you need to do. And in New England, you've got a better charging infrastructure than we have here in the Midwest. Tesla's charging infrastructure is good everywhere, but if you're, for what you need to do, you can probably get where you need to go with a single car, as a single car household with the ID4 all-wheel drive, and that might be what I do. It's actually a great car to drive. It's not as quick as the Mustang Mach-E, and some of the tech weirdness is, there's lots of slider touch control sort of things, and the infotainment's not even Volkswagen's best, but it's completely serviceable. The interior is really roomy, a lot of space inside, so I don't think that would be an issue. And yeah, all-wheel drive, you'd be good in the winter there, and with that range, you'd be good, especially in the summer. You'd be good going sort of longer distances, and you'd definitely be good going to Boston twice a week, especially if you've got a place to charge in the city, or if you have a level 2 charger at your house, you're going to be good to go as well. So that's probably what I would do. Whether you want to do the Volkswagen or the Mach-E is completely personal preference. I think I like the Mach-E a little better, but I don't know. There are definitely things I like about the Volkswagen better. One of which was handling, and I think it's a little more spacious. But yeah, check those out. The all-wheel drive will be here very soon, and might just be what you need. But, I also, as someone who regrets getting rid of every car they've ever sold, it's hard for me to tell someone to give up on a E-Class wagon.
I am wondering if there's like a secret third option here or fourth option, I guess, depending on how you count this. Just keep the wagon. Just keep it. Like, you live in New England, you have a wagon.
Yeah.
You've probably got maybe like a Labrador or a Golden Retriever. Like, he's got to ride around in something. You put the bean boots in it. Like, this is a Christmas card. Like, just keep the wagon.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Find the money somewhere else. And I think your analysis of ID4 versus Mach E is very similar to how I would come down. I would come down with, if you could get it, I would get the Mach E with all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
I was just on the Ford site trying to actually fake order one, and I didn't quite get far enough to see what the availability is, that precisely when that's available. So I think that does factor into it. Like, if you want a car now, and you could get the ID4 with all-wheel drive, it's like your personal preference, it's a toss-up, I would go ahead and get the one that you can get. I wouldn't necessarily wait. That being said, maybe you're a Mustang person, I don't know. You love the Mustang, you love the Mach E. I do like it a little bit better than the Volkswagen, just from the looks, from the fact that it's a Mustang, to the infotainment, I think is
the technology
better.
in it's really good.
Yeah, like, if it's even somewhat close, I would hold out for the Mach E, is what I would say. But I would also say this, New England winters probably about the same as Michigan winters, which is to say not good. I would definitely try to go with all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
I think this is a situation where you're going to want to do that.
Yeah, especially when the alternative is rear-wheel drive, not front-wheel drive. Yeah.
And they are crossovers. So, I mean, to me, this is where all-wheel drive is sort of like table stakes. If you want to play, you want to be safe.
Yeah.
So, cool. Well, thanks for writing, Chaz. Let us know how it turns out. We can leave it there. Send us your spend my monies. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a good rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get the show. It's podcast@autoblog.com for the mailbag for Spend My Money. Be safe out there. We'll see you next week.